Hi everybody, today I'm going to show you how I created this bright background using Kaleidacolor Spectrum ink pad. So this is the ink pad that I'll be using. It has 5 different colors in the pad. And I'm also going to be using this Versafine ink pad in black onyx to stamp my image, which I will then watercolor. I'm also going to be using the ink daubers to sponge on more color to my background. So let's get started and I'll show you how easy and simple this background is to create. So I'm using this wood grain cardstock. It's by Simon Says Stamp, and this is the ink pad. You can see that you can use the colors pushed apart or together depending on what kind of technique you're using. So I'm picking up some of the ink with my brayer and I'm going to roll it on directly to my cardstock, and you can really see the texture here on the cardstock. So I'm just rolling it on, and I switch it so that I have that orange kind of on top of each other, and it creates a gradual gradient there. The next thing I'm going to do is take some of my daubers and I'm going to sponge on even more ink to the cardstock. This is going to blend the colors together and really get rid of any of that white that is showing from the texture of the wood grain cardstock. And I pick up a new dauber for each one except the blue and the purple because they're pretty similar in color. I just dab off some of the ink onto a paper towel, and then I can just use that same dauber for those two colors. But for all the other colors I am using a new dauber so that I don't cross-contaminate, like the pink and the orange. So you can see that I'm really sponging on and blending the colors into each other. I like this ink pad because all of the colors just work really well together. They're just beautiful, and there are so many different colors to choose from. So I'm sponging on a little bit more green because I see some white areas, and then I'm going to go ahead and start watercoloring. So I'm stamping my image using the Versafine Black Onyx, and I always do 2 just because I might mess up. So I'm using distress inks to watercolor, and the first thing I do is lay down some water in the area that I'm going to start, and then I'll pick up some of the color and I'll drop that into the area that is already wet on my watercolor paper. I like this technique because it seems to, I can just really let the water do the blending for me, and you'll be able to see it here as I lay down the color in the wet area. It really just blends right out into the image. And then I can clean up my brush and bring in more color, or I can leave it white if I want to have more of a shading and highlighted area. So now I'm going to color the ears just using the same technique. First I lay down some water, and then I'm going to paint on some of the color. And you'll see that I also take a heat tool and dry it after each color. When you're watercoloring, you really want to make sure that the areas that you're coloring are dry before you move on to another area. That way your color won't blend into that other area that you had just colored. So you can see that I am just blending up, and I do want to leave a little bit of a white spot on the tip of his tail. And so I just leave that white and then clean off my brush, and then I'll bring in a little bit of color. I'm going to do the same thing for his face. So I always start with my color, the darkest on the edges where the shadows would be, and then I bring in some of the color after I clean off my brush. I'll bring some of the color into the middle of the area, and this gives you a really good blending. It gives you really good shading, and I love this technique. So I'm going to dry it one more time, make sure it's nice and dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut it out. So I'm just going along the lines of the stamp, and one thing that I have found is that if I move the paper rather than move my scissors, I get a much cleaner cut. I'm less likely to make mistakes. The other thing that I've learned is to take a felt tip pen, black pen, and just fill in those white areas, the core of the cardstock that you just cut out, and it just makes it look really clean and crisp. So I'm going to cut out these clouds, and they're a little bright against the really rich background, so I want to add some color around the edges. So I'm going to take some Distress ink and weathered wood and use a clean new ink dauber and just go around the edges a little bit to add some dimension to the clouds. This softens them up and gives them more depth against my background. So the next thing I'm going to do is add my sentiment. So I'm using the black Onyx ink again to pick up that ink and just stamp on my cardstock, and you can see I'm doing it twice. The first time it had a little white spot on it and I wanted it to be nice, crisp, and black. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut this out. This time I'm going to leave a white border. I want it to look more like a thought bubble, so I thought the white border would give that effect. Now I'm going to add some twine with this lawn trimmings, and it takes me a moment to figure out that all you have to do is pull that little part that's sticking up, and that's the start. But it took me a while to figure that out, so here I find that out and we can get going on making the bow on my cloud. So I am just tying a bow, really simple. And once I get it to my liking, I will trim off the tails, and then I can start adhering my card together. So this card that I created, the cardstock, I cut to 4¼ by 5½, so it's a standard A2 size card. And I have a top folding card base that I'm using. And so I just adhere that to the front. And now I'm going to add some dimension with some Zap Dots on the back of my fox. And when I put this color on the card with the green at the bottom, it looks just like it's like a little grassy area, and the fox is sitting at like twilight. So that's kind of where I drew my inspiration for a little scene on my card. So I'm adding one cloud directly to the cardstock so it's flat, and then this cloud with the bow on it, I am going to add some additional Zap Dots for some more dimension. I like the twine on my cloud. It added just a little bit of an embellishment that I thought my card needed. So I'm almost done. I just need to adhere my cloud, and you can see that the card is finished. I really like this technique, and you can use it for many different backgrounds. You don't have to use it on a textured cardstock. You could use it on smooth cardstock and create your own custom backgrounds. Thanks for watching.